where we review all the best sports clips from around the world. We're watching a clip of First Things First, talking about how will Patrick Mahomes play in the Super Bowl. Is it going to be a masterpiece for Mahomes, or will it be an A game for Brock Purdy? This is going to be really interesting because I just can't see Mahomes not playing well. I think the defense isn't the strongest point for the 49ers, but I think, and it's not to say that the Chiefs have the strongest offense this year, especially when compared to their previous seasons, but I just trust Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and I believe that Travis Kelce will also gets an extra week off, so he's going to feeling pretty good, like he's ready to go. I think those guys have a big game. Whether it's enough to beat the 49ers, that's a different story. But I'm just not seeing a game where Patrick Mahomes throws for like 200 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. You know, I can't imagine that. I mean, that would be shocking. Or if Bosa gets to him like 4 times and it's just like, oh my God, Bosa's suffocating Mahomes. I mean, that would be fascinating to see, but I'm not predicting that. So I have to imagine that Mahomes is going to play a really, really great, solid game.
Life. Then last year, 3 touchdowns, but under 200 yards, won his second MVP. So Nick, 2 wins, but still feels like there's more there. You can really see that, have the full Mahomes experience. Are you expecting a Mahomes masterpiece?
Yes. Underrated game of last year when he won league MVP, maybe his best game of the year, was against this San Francisco defense, which while it didn't have Chase Young, who cares, it did have Hufanga, who's outstanding. And I understand they've changed out defensive linemen, but it's still the main core of the defense. And I would argue they had an even better, and I like Wilkes, but an even better defensive coordinator with D'Amico. And all Mahomes did was the Chiefs scored 44. He threw for 420 yards. He had a 130 rating.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. This is such a pet peeve of mine, of comparing the same players from last season. You literally just said that it's different defensive coordinator. That alone changes everything. That alone literally changes everything. You also now replace a couple players. It's not everyone's the same, but you replace a couple players. So that already changes it. Not to mention that even the same players that are still playing is completely different because they're a year older, which means they're either wiser, smarter, more mature, more closer to their prime, or maybe even the opposite. They're more injured now, and they're farther away from their prime, because they're past their prime. I don't really know. I'm not, digging into each individual player in that regard. But even if you had the exact same players exactly playing each other from one season to the next, it still would not be the same. Are you the same exact person you were last year? You're not. You might be very similar, but you're not, because you have a whole year worth of experiences. You're older. Your body's different. Your body is literally not the same. So this whole idea that we could, I don't know why we keep doing this. And if you ever saw the movie Groundhog's Day talks about this. For those of you who don't know, I assume you do know, the main character, he lives the same day again and again and again and again. And even though the day is identical, it still changes. And even when he does something successful, like he wants to be able to pick up a girl, even when he does that, he then tries to repeat exactly what he did the last time, because it worked the last time to be able to get her in bed. And it still didn't work because the moment wasn't identical, because it wasn't perfect, because you can't recapture that moment. So this idea that he can just point to what happened last season is so absurd. Not to mention, that might have been a lot of times that this was the first time that it was their first time playing Patrick Mahomes, or you're playing someone of that caliber. And so now they know, now they've learned, now they've grown. So it's such a pet peeve of mine, because just throw that out of the water. I don't know why people like Nick Wright and lots of people do this. I mean, the comparisons just don't matter. And if don't believe me, watch the movie Groundhog's Day. They highlight it better than I could ever.
And as you alluded to, we can show you Mahomes' postseason career ranks. And he is, of course, first in everything. But there is one thing missing. So if you show him his touchdown interception ratio and passer rating by round, what sticks out is
Super Bowl.
The Super Bowls are not like the others. Now, he was named the most valuable player of 2 of them, but the numbers aren't quite there. And in a game where he can stand alone and third all-time postseason victories, just one win, if we can show that, behind Joe Montana for his career if he wins this weekend. There is an element of Mahomes painting his masterpiece within the year he was most doubted, with the worst weapons, with the most adversity, having his first ever great start to finish Super Bowl. And we are in Friday before the Super Bowl, Brew, and we have not mentioned this stat once, which is, where is this game? In a dome. So Patrick Mahomes, as it turns out, has never lost in a dome. And in fact, 330 yards, averages a 13-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. If the conditions are perfect, so is he. So for all of those reasons, and because of what's at stake, locking in the dynasty, the first back-to-back in 20 years, having it simply be him and Brady for the rest of time, I think Mahomes is going to play the best game he has played all year and the best Super Bowl he's ever played.
Yeah, because he's had few masterpieces, if any, this year. Now, you could say some of these playoff games he was great, but, he didn't throw for his typical numbers and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm saying no, because if he has a masterpiece,
you're in trouble.
I'm going to be wrong. I think that Nick Bosa, he needs a big game, and I think he'll have one. He's going to be going against Jawan Taylor, and I think he's going to be able to. They only got two. Well, hopefully he'll be called for those holds if he does it. And then I think Hargrave too, Javon Hargrave. I don't know if Tooney is playing. We don't know yet.
Probably not.
Right. So I thought the backup had a little bit of trouble against Baltimore on some run plays where he didn't clear out. And so I think Hargrave could have a big game against the backup center. They got to get pressure on Mahomes. Yeah, they got to. Yeah, my bad. They got to get pressure on Mahomes. And no, I don't think he's going to have a huge game. Like you saw, he has yet to have. He's been great in the Super Bowls as far as winning MVPs and comebacks, but he hasn't had a typical
monster
Mahomes day
stat
yet.
game.
Yes, in the Super Bowl.
All right, check in on Brock, who led the league in passer rating, of course, and has had a few comebacks of late. I know you think that was a bad stat. I actually thought that was actually pretty good.
What?
That they've been trailing so much in the playoffs.
Okay.
I thought that was a
I think it's better to have
The
play poorly
mojo,
than
that's what
play
I'm talking
well.
about. The
Yeah, a little
mojo.
bit of
So
momentum.
can I just ask you a real quick question on that? If they had led every minute of every game, you think that would be bad?
No, but I think you would say that he hadn't faced adversity. Right?
Okay. All right.
Here's the best games against.
It's absolutely right. Nick is being condescending and passive aggressive there. He goes, okay. But it's true. That was literally what he kept saying about Purdy, is that, Purdy hasn't faced that adversity and hasn't shown that he can come back. Same thing with Shanahan, and now he does, and it's still not good enough for Nick. So it doesn't, again, that doesn't really make sense. And yet also, he then also even pointed out when they were breaking down the Ravens loss that the Ravens led pretty much throughout the entire season. Majority of the entire season, they were leading, and so now when they were behind against the Chiefs, they didn't really know what to do, which Nick Wright kind of signed off on. So why is it then, again, it doesn't fit his narrative for the Chiefs-49ers game, so he just kind of throws that out the window. But they're about to ask a question, I believe so, is that Brock Purdy, will Brock Purdy have an A game? I think, I'm not going to predict an A game or a B game or a C game or a D game or whatever. I think Brock Purdy is going to play exactly how he's been playing, but I think one of two things. First and foremost, the most important thing is going to be, does Shanahan put Brock Purdy in a position to succeed? Okay? Does he put Brock Purdy in a position to make the right passes at the right times, not forcing the ball when you need not, right? If they're up by 7 and they're on a pretty good drive going, rolling, does he call up a play that tells Brock Purdy to push the ball down the field, which now it's a lot riskier of a throw, and it's like, oh my God, now you just threw an interception, or now you just, you bombed it on 3 and 4 just because you were going for a kill shot. It's like, why did you do that? You didn't need to do that. You have the defense on their back foot. Just keep doing what you're doing. McCaffrey just a couple, downs ago just ripped off for a 15, 20-yard run. Like, just do what works. So that would be on Shanahan. So if Shanahan is very smart, which I do trust him, especially because I feel as though he's made his mistakes and he knows not to either be too passive or too aggressive, that's what you do. Although I do think at times he was too aggressive in the against the Detroit Lions game. I think he got very lucky with that Brandon Ayuk pass. And people will say, oh, that was a 50-50 ball. But that's not the time to throw a 50-50 ball. It's just not. Especially with a young quarterback. Because a young quarterback who throws a ball like that and ends up being intercepted, that will eat at him. That will slowly degrade his confidence. I don't care how confident you are. He hasn't had the success yet. Early in Mahomes' career, it would get to him. Now it wouldn't. Now you can draw up that play for like a Mahomes. Because Mahomes knows, whatever. I've been here. I've done that. I know it. I've thrown plenty of interceptions and still balled out and won Super Bowls. So I know I can do it. Brock Purdy doesn't have that experience to lean on. So I think whether or not Brock Purdy plays a great game will depend so much on what Shanahan does. And I think it'll be very obvious. We'll be able to point. If Brock Purdy doesn't play a good game, we'll be able to point pretty clearly what was Shanahan doing. Or Brock Purdy turns into an absolute pumpkin and he has people wide open and he's just launching the ball 100 feet over their head, right? Technically a possibility, not what I'm predicting. The other thing is I think we're probably going to see Brock Purdy be a little bit more mobile. I think that ended up being massive in the Detroit Lions game. Massive, obviously, right? Without a doubt. And I think Shanahan is going to draw up and be like, we're going to take advantage of this. If you can scramble and if you can run like this, you are going to do it, okay? We're still going to go through all our progressions. We're still going to go through all our reads. But if the field is open and they're giving it to you, even if it's just 5 yards, 6 yards, you're going to do it. You're going to do it, and then you're going to slide. You're not going to get yourself knocked out. We're not getting Sam Darnold in the game. But you're going to do it. You're going to get those yards. It moves the chains. It keeps the clock running. And it keeps the ball out of Patrick Mahomes. And it's a backbreaker for the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs keep having Brock Purdy picking up first downs with his legs. The Chiefs are like, are you kidding me? We have to cover that and McCaffrey and Debo and Kittle and Ayuk. Like, how are we supposed to do? It's too many. It's too much at that point. It really is. It's too much. So that's why a lot of people say, oh, what happens if Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen was on the Chiefs, right? Or on the 49ers? How amazing would the 49ers be? And a big part of that is because you also add, their game with their legs. And now if you add that with Brock Purdy, it just opens up the possibilities. Because then they maybe have to put a spy on Purdy, which I'm not saying they will. I don't think Purdy's going to be ripping off for 100 yards here, and that's not what I'm calling for him to do either. But it's just like when the field is there for you to take it, take it. You don't force the ball downfield when you don't need to. The possessions, time of possession will be key for the 49ers. Key.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Here's Brock first. Take a listen. Okay, so here are the best games against the Chiefs defense, and I don't know if you're calling any of these necessarily an A, maybe some solid B pluses there. It's Goff, Cousins, what could have been, huh? And Jordan Love. Everybody else passing under 200 yards, 16 touchdowns, 15 turnovers with a passer rating around 78.
And shout out Kirk Cousins, who tore his Achilles, stayed quiet about it, and then danced on stage yesterday.
Right, that was the other thing. Nick Wright, I forget if it was just this clip or the last clip I just did, he called out the Green Bay Packers and said that they weren't that good, and yet they convincingly beat the Chiefs.
The Ezra's, which was maybe the most impressive thing I've seen from an Achilles patient.
And his was a lot later.
This is pretty good, but go ahead. Sorry.
Brew, you had a hole in one, though? Brew, are you expecting an A game out of Brock?
They need an A game out of Brock, yes. I think so. I'm not saying
this is the least base.
A plus.
The base on
no,
that.
I'm not saying an A plus game.
You are shook.
A plus.
No,
I'm not shook.
Brew has buyer's remorse.
No. I just told you how. I told you how he handles the blitz.
Just saying.
I told you how he handles the blitz. I told you how they handle man coverage.
Oh my gosh.
All right, and also Spags gives quarterbacks fits with his disguises.
Yeah.
Purdy is one of the quickest, that's one of his strengths, quick processor. All right, so I think he will be able to recognize when they disguise and then switch out of it after the snap. Sure. He will recognize that and go to the right man. So I'm expecting a clean game, maybe one turnover at the max, and clean game otherwise. Okay. And maybe not 300 yards, but multiple touchdowns.
Did you say one turnover but a clean game?
No, I said besides that. Besides maybe one turnover, I know one turnover is not
You
clean.
sound like a B game.
Maybe
Yeah,
one.
that's like a B game.
No, look,
2 touchdowns, a
if
turnover,
he
250.
wins and isn't horrible, I mean, they can't win without him being horrible. But if he wins
right, now
and
he's
plays
kinda...
fairly
B
well,
game,
that's
he gets an A.
No, I'm saying he's gonna get in playing A game.
Okay, so this
I'm telling
is
you.
Okay, all right.
sometimes Bruce says things, and I say, man, you went first, and you said.
All right, we
Exactly what I was
saying.
saying.
He'll get in playing A game.
Okay, so this
Wow.
is
Okay, all
this
right.
is sometimes Bruce says things, and I say, man, you went first, and you said exactly what I was going to say. This is one of those times where it's not exactly that, but it might as well have been, because my first thing I had jotted down was, well, is he going to be graded on a real scale or some weird Brock Purdy curve? And it sounds like what Brew is saying is, if he wins and doesn't have a total disaster, he gets an A, which is not how we've done grades.
But that's not fair, because we all talk about Mahomes being amazing, which he is and has proven to be amazing. But as they've already pointed out, he has not had amazing Super Bowls, yet we say he is the Super Bowl MVP. He is a champion. He has 2 rings. We don't say, well, the Chiefs won despite his not great play, right? So again, Nick Wright is just really being inconsistent in that respect. So if Brock Purdy doesn't have a great first half, but then balls out in the second half, that is something very similar. Patrick Mahomes played not good for 3 quarters against the 49ers, and then played a great last 7 minutes, and then we crown him the MVP, the champ, the amazing, the GOAT, the future GOAT, everything. So why is it that if Brock Purdy does that, it's not okay? That's the imbalance that I don't really get. And it can't just be because of draft pick. It really can't. I understand Patrick Mahomes was drafted significantly higher than Brock Purdy, but it's not like Patrick Mahomes went into the league with this utmost respect of he is going to be an absolute dog in the league. No one was. I mean, I'm sure there's some people predicting it, but that's not what the general consensus was. That's not what the average media person was saying or thinking. I don't even know if Nick Wright, as someone pointed out in the comments, that Nick Wright was not even really talking about Mahomes. And if he really thought Mahomes was going to be something truly special, he would have said it from the moment it happened. And I'm sure maybe to a small degree he did, but not like he is now. He's definitely more building it up after the fact, which is why even Brew gets credit for being the first one to say Patrick Mahomes is, Jordan-esque, beating out Nick Wright. So I'm just unsure why we afford that. And it can't be just because Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. I don't think people really consider that right now. The average person does not. Does the big Super Bowl football nerds of the world look at that and think listen, he was drafted last for a reason, and then that's why, and let me show you why? Sure, and I can get behind that. But the average person on social media or even in the media, they're not thinking about that, okay? They're just looking at it. They don't remember where any of these people were drafted, okay? I bet you the average person doesn't even know what number Patrick Mahomes was drafted. Seriously, I guarantee you. The only reason why they even know Purdy is because it's very easy to remember. The last pick. But no one ever remembers 29th, the 4th round, 3rd round. I mean, you just don't remember. Seriously, you just don't. Even big football fans don't remember. So I just don't think that that's a consideration. So I am curious. And obviously now, after we already have Patrick Mahomes' established greatness, that if he does have an inconsistent game or throw an interception in the first half and then ball out in the 4th quarter, we just tip our hat, which is understandably and rightfully so. And theoretically, Brock Purdy hasn't done that enough or won consistently enough at a high enough level yet. And it would start really honestly with this Super Bowl is when you would finally be able to be like, okay, even if he does have a game like he played against Detroit or the Packers, he still comes up big. He gets the job done. He is him. But in order to really get that benefit of the doubt, he has to play big in the Super Bowl, or he has to at least be a legitimate reason as to why they win. He could throw a couple of interceptions in the Super Bowl, right? But then if in the 4th quarter, he balls out, right? Does back-to-back drives, throws for a 2-point conversion, rips off a 25-yard run, ices the game, inside 2 minutes with a perfect dime to Kittle, well then yeah, you have to say, yeah, hey, he did what Patrick Mahomes has done in the past. Didn't start off too great, but boy, was he the reason why they won that game. And you would have to give it to him. So really, the ball is completely, both physically and metaphorically, in Brock Purdy's hands. And I am so excited to see what he's going to do in this game. I really, really am. To me, he's obviously the most interesting person to look out for in this game, and McCaffrey as well, and Shanahan. I think I'm pretty confident we know what Kittle's going to do. We know what Kelsey, Mahomes, Andy Reid, right? We know what those usual suspects are going to do. But I'm really interested to see how much Shanahan has grown in terms of play calling and how he manages these games in the Super Bowl, as well as Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey, since he's never really been here. But again, we're also confident. I believe Christian McCaffrey is also going to ball out, but I'm just really curious if like he even gets another gear. If he's really like, let's go Super Bowl. I am him. 2 weeks off. I am healed. I am good. Let's do this. So I can't wait. I am so excited. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a masterpiece game? Or do you think Brock Purdy is going to have an A game? Do you think both are going to have it? Or both are just going to play? Whatever. Let me know in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community here. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.